I'm not particularly one who likes to reuse old material. But anyway, here's a summary of 2020. Woohoo! 2020, the year that happened, but also did not happen. Now, 2020 was a year where lots of people died, people lost their jobs, and there were economic hardships galore. In general, you could probably say 2020 has been a pretty poor year. Now, how did the year that happened, but also did not happen, impact reenacting? For reenacting, events were basically all canceled. For myself and my friends, we actually did get one tactical in February or something like that, right before everything went to hell. But besides that, events have and will continue to be completely canceled. So on the whole, 2020 is a complete wash for events. But was 2020 a complete wash for reenacting? If you base it upon events happening and then thus all those events being canceled, then yes, 2020 was a complete washout for reenacting. But reenacting is a lot more than just events. There's a lot more behind reenacting. It's not just going out there and going, pew pew, pew 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 pew. I think all too often in reenacting, that's what we all interpret or people see as reenacting. It's just going out there and constantly having to shoot somebody. But reenacting is much more than that. And if your reenacting and living history impression doesn't even have anything to do with the military or isn't some soldier impression, you might not even be shooting somebody. And if we really want to get into it, most of a soldier's life was not spent on the battlefield. So if you want to get really historically accurate about it, when you're just shooting at events all the time, you're not really being accurate anyway. You should be doing manual labor or something like that. So before this turns into a rant about why Jonathan dislikes the basis for so many events, let me try and make my point. Besides providing public entertainment, which is always good, events also help educate the public and help get the public interested in history. Now, in order to best interpret to the public, it's really good to be able to know what you're talking about. It's great to be wearing the uniform, it's great to march around, drill about, pew 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 even, but if you don't know really what you're talking about, or you don't have the latest information, you can be interpreting to the public quite incorrectly. So I think 2020 was a really good year to be able to help build up your research and to be able to better improve your impression to help talk to the public and help the public learn. It was also a very good year to improve your kit, such as myself. I've slowly been improving my Rev War kit and improving bits and bobs there. So 2020 was also a really good year for, doing small improvements, making your kit better, making yourself better to just learn. All those things are really good and are paramount in reenacting. So that was certainly not a wash in the slightest. In fact, I'd argue there was probably a hell of a lot of time this year to do things like that. So that's one strike that says, no, 2020 was not a wash. Now, for myself and some of my friends, 2020 was also a very good year to build some new kits as well. This year, I think I completed 3 kits. Besides making improvements to my Rev War kit, I was able to finish my Loyals in Singapore in 1941 kit that I've been working on for a few years now. So that got completed this year. I also completed my First World War kit, well, relatively completed. You never actually complete a kit, you're always improving it. Remember, this was a good year for improving. And I was also able to build up a First World War British Mesopotamia kit. Again, not complete, you're always building things up, but I was able to build that up, and it's relatively complete. Unfortunately, though, I was not able to put it on before our lovely New England winter struck, and a tropical British kit is not very conducive to snow, sleet, ice, and below zero temperatures. Now for my regular old Western Front kit, I built that with some of my friends, and we were able to research it, figure out which items we needed to do, etc., etc. In 2020, it was really good for things like that. When you're researching, be able to look things up and get what you need to, it's really rewarding and really fun. And it really, I would argue, is one of the real joys of reenacting, is to be able to research things, go through things, find vendors and retailers of where you can buy things. It's when you see something in a photo and you're like, oh, that's what they wore, and you're able to then go get something and put it on, it tickles you. It really does. It's fun. I think little joys like that really go to show that reenacting is so much more than just the pew pew at events and things like that. The little joys are really what make it all worthwhile. Now, my friend Josh was actually able to complete, what, 4 or maybe even 5 kits or something like that again, he'd been working on for a long time. With there being no events, it really gives you the time to be able to just sit down and work on those things. You can sit down and figure out the things you need to do to improve your kit, to improve your impression, to do the simple little things like that. And if you want to build a kit, you can sit down and you have that time to be able to do those things. When you're not running about the country trying to go to an event, do this, do that, well, the other thing you can focus on is really those things that are also important. Those kind of foundations to reenacting. The things that make it when you're on that field, that kind of runs the impression home. 2020 lets you do things like that. So I would say that is another strike against 2020 being a wash. Now, 2020 might have been a washout for big grandioso events, but we were able to do some other things that weren't your traditional events. We were able to go on things called charity marches. So the first one this year was in June or something, was organized by my friend Brandon, where we were in our Rev War kits and we raised money for Waterloo Uncovered. And we were able to raise, I think, like $2,000 for the charity. So Brandon's charity hike was very successful. And my friends Matt and Chris were also able to organize the Men of Harlech Charity March, where we were in our First World War kits marching for the Commonwealth War Graves Foundation, where we were able to raise, again, $2,000 for the charity. And of course, we followed all the COVID safety protocols and everything like that. And it was much easier to do that when you have a small event, I guess not really an event, on a charity march, where you can control everything and you know where everyone's coming from, and it's in a smaller geographic area. And with charities and things hurting like that this year, it was really good to be able to do things like that. So between the 2 charity marches, we were able to raise $4,000, again, for Waterloo Uncovered and the Commonwealth War Graves Foundation. So for me personally, I really feel like this year we did the most good in reenacting. Of course, when you're at an event and you're helping people get interested in history and they're learning, that is of course priceless. There's no doubt about that. But on a charity march, when you're actually able to raise funds for a charity, that's just really impactful. So in the future, if we could do charity marches and things like events, I think that'd be the perfect combination. So I would say that is another strike against 2020 being a washout for reenacting. So to conclude, was 2020 a wash for reenacting? I would say no. It was certainly a different year, but it wasn't a washout. We did a lot of good this year. It was a great year to improve your kit. It was a great year to be able to build new kits and find out new information, but it wasn't a washout. It was different, but it was fun. And COVID doesn't seem to be going anywhere anytime soon. Yes, there's a vaccine, etc., but it's still going to be months and months before things even get remotely back to any sort of normalcy. So I think in the time coming forward, it's great if we push forward in some of these things that I've talked about here. Continue to improve research, continue to improve your kits. Just continue to improve as reenactors. There's all this time, why not take advantage of it? Not everything has to be being out there. There's plenty of stuff that needs to be done now, so why not just do it? So if you wanted that new cap for your kit, go and get it. Or if you can't afford to do it, have someone help you make it or something like that. At least if it's Rev War anyway. But take advantage of this time. There's no reason to be down. Yeah, there's all this stuff going on in the world. But in terms of reenacting, there's really no reason to be down. There's this great time to be learning new things and researching and just making everything so much better. So in this time when everything's down and gloomy, there's so much to work on. And yes, we all are itching for events. There's no doubt about that. I know I have this whole long spiel about why it wasn't a wash, but of course we all want the events. There's no doubt about that. Everyone likes being out, seeing their friends, and doing fun things. but it doesn't mean 2020 was just not a productive year. So this has been my thoughts on why 2020 was not a washout year. So I hope you enjoyed this video at some level in my stupid rant. So anyway, cheers.
It's the soldiers of the King, my lads, who've been, my lads, who've seen, my lads, in the fight for England's glory, lads, of its worldwide glory, let us sing.